Mark is a middle-aged man who lives alone in bustling New York City, where life is always rushed and hectic. He worked as a taxi driver, a job that did not have fixed hours and often faced long trips at night, when the city was plunged into darkness and silence. Mark has never really felt like he belongs here, despite living in New York for many years. The feeling of loneliness always haunts him, especially late at night, when he is left with only the sound of the noisy machinery of the taxi and the neon lights reflected in the empty streets. However, Mark is not a closed person. He always had a kind heart with him, and in the quiet moments of the night, he often reflected on the people he met on his path, the small but touching stories they shared. He felt like a part of those stories, even if he was just an invisible stranger on short bus rides. At work, Mark is more than just a driver. He listens to passengers' stories, from short conversations to deep confidence. He felt sadness, joy, and sometimes loneliness in the eyes and words of strangers. This makes him feel a strange connection with the people around him, even though he has never really entered their lives. From these stories, Mark realizes even more that even though each person has a unique journey, we are all looking for solace and affection in a world that is sometimes cold and strange. New Year's Eve, when people gather with family and friends, is a time when Mark feels even more deprived in his life. He had no family by his side, and no one was waiting for him to return home after a long day. But he did not let that loneliness fade his heart. Instead, he turns every trip, every encounter into an opportunity to create meaningful moments. Although there are still unquenchable sorrows in his heart, Mark always tries to live with the belief that acts of kindness and caring for others can make this life more beautiful, at least for the people he meets along the way. On New Year's Eve, when Mark was driving a taxi along the illuminated streets of New York, he received a request to pick up a passenger from a location quite far away. While driving and thinking about the quiet moments of the night, he didn't expect that this trip would bring a completely life-changing encounter. When he arrived, Mark was surprised to see a little girl of about 8 years old waiting, holding a bouquet of fresh flowers in his hand. She looked fragile and lonely in the cold of the late night, but her eyes contained an unusually assertive and resilient look. After opening the car door, the little girl slowly stepped up and sat in the back seat, smiling softly but not hiding the sadness in her eyes. Mark looked at her through the rearview mirror and smiled, but he felt a distinct difference in the air. She didn't say anything right away, but when Mark started driving, she spoke softly, in a small but determined voice. "I want to go to the cemetery where my parents died. They died in a car accident, and I want to put flowers on their graves." Mark was silent for a moment, a choking feeling rising in his heart. He couldn't imagine what it felt like for a child to suffer such a great loss. But what surprised him more was the calmness and maturity in the way she spoke about that loss. Even though she is only 8 years old, Lily seems to have carried a pain that many adults probably cannot face in such a strong way. Mark tried to keep the air from being too heavy, but he couldn't help but be confused in his heart. He didn't understand why she wanted to go alone on New Year's Eve to visit her parents' graves, but there was something in Lily's story that touched his heart. Although he didn't know what to do, Mark felt he couldn't simply drive her to the cemetery and leave. He felt that tonight was not just an ordinary trip, but an opportunity for him to do something meaningful for a child who was facing so much pain. Mark looked at Lily through the rearview mirror, her eyes not leaving the bouquet of fresh flowers in her hands, as if it was the last gift she could give her parents. A feeling of sympathy surged in his heart, and a thought suddenly flashed in his mind. He wondered if she had someone waiting for her beyond the cemetery door, if she would be able to return to a warm home after this late night, or if she would continue to be lonely between memories and pain. He felt a strong urge to do something, not simply to complete this trip and leave, but to create a warm moment for her on this New Year's Eve. The convoy passed through the busy streets, but in Mark's heart, it all seemed to slow down. He thinks of his family, his wife and 2 young children, who are preparing to welcome the new year in joy and happiness. Part of him felt sorry for himself for not being able to share tonight with them, but another part wanted Lily to have the opportunity to feel the things she had been missing all along: care, love, and a family home. Finally, as the taxi prepares to arrive at the cemetery, Mark decides not to stop at taking her to where she wants to go. He turned to look at Lily through the rearview mirror and said softly, "Lily, why don't you go home to celebrate the new year with my family? Surely my children will be very happy to have a friend like you." His voice was full of sincerity, and though he didn't expect Lily to accept it right away, he felt that this was the only thing that could help her feel the warmth tonight. Lily looked at him for a moment, then nodded gently, though there was still a hint of hesitation in her eyes. Mark smiled in relief, feeling that his heart was lightened. Upon arriving at the cemetery, Mark helps Lily place a bouquet of flowers on her parents' graves, and they stand in silence for a few minutes, sharing the quiet space of New Year's Eve. Then he said softly, "Now if you want, we can go back to my house. Surely the new year will be much happier if you have a new friend." Lily looked into Mark's eyes, and in that moment, the anxiety seemed to subside. She realizes that, despite the loss of her parents, she can still find new loved ones who will be willing to share her affection and care. She nodded in agreement and stepped into the taxi with Mark, heading for a new home where joy and love awaited. After leaving the cemetery, the taxi glided through the illuminated streets of New York, where the festive atmosphere was overflowing. Light snow, covering everything with a layer of white, makes the city more mysterious and warm on New Year's Eve. Mark drove with a strange feeling, as if he was doing something bigger than just taking a passenger from point A to point B. Both he and Lily were silent in a space full of reflection, but the atmosphere between them was now not as heavy as it had been at first. Lily let go of her grip on the bouquet, leaning back in her chair with her eyes out the window, and Mark could feel the relief in her. When they arrived at Mark's house, his family was preparing for a New Year's dinner. His wife, Linda, and their 2 children, Emma and Jack, were setting the table, arranging chairs for the small party. Hearing the taxi, Linda stepped out, surprised to see Mark and a strange girl. Mark looked at his wife, smiled, and quickly explained, "This is Lily. She has just experienced a great loss, and I think the new year will be more fun if she is here with us." Linda, though a little surprised, did not hesitate, and greeted Lily with a warm smile. "Hello, Lily. It's a pleasure to meet you. Invite me into the house. Let's welcome the new year together." Lily hesitated a little, but Linda's friendly gaze made her feel less worried. She walked into the house, and the warmth of the space made her heart soften. Mark's family welcomes Lily as a new friend, and Emma and Jack, though a little surprised, quickly invite her to play with them. The whole family gathers at the dinner table, chats happily and prepares special dishes for New Year's Eve together. During dinner, Mark felt a strange joy to see Lily participate in the stories, although she remained calm but had a bright smile. Emma and Jack's simple questions about school, about their favorite games, seemed to make her open up more. Although there is still grief about the loss in her heart, Lily begins to feel the warmth, care, and love that she has not experienced since losing her parents. When night falls and the countdown clock rings on New Year's Eve, the whole family welcomes the new year together. Mark and Linda held hands, Emma and Jack stood next to each other, and Lily stood in the middle of everyone, feeling a sense of belonging in a family she never thought she would have tonight. When the bell rang, Mark turned to look at Lily and said, "Happy New Year, Lily. We'll always be here with you." Lily smiled, her eyes lit up in that moment, and the feeling of loneliness was partially relieved. She knows that, despite the difficulties of life, she can still find new loved ones who will always be with her. The new year is no longer just a separation, but an opportunity to start a new journey full of hope and love. After a warm New Year's Eve, the relationship between Lily and Mark's family gradually deepens, not just a brief encounter but the beginning of a strong bond. With each passing day, Lily began to feel a change in herself. The pain of loss gradually gave way to moments of joy and warm affection that she had never imagined. Mark and Linda not only welcome her into the house, but also spend time listening, chatting, and sharing everyday stories, making Lily feel that she is no longer alone in this world. The next morning after waking up, Lily is invited by Emma and Jack to participate in the creative games they usually do every holiday. At first, she felt strange and embarrassed, but the enthusiasm of the two children made her gradually open her heart. Mark and Linda also participate in these games, laughing and joking together, creating a cozy family atmosphere. Those are moments that Lily never had, moments where she feels care and love that is not always easy to find. Gradually, Lily began to feel more comfortable in this house. She and Emma became close friends, sharing hobbies together, from painting to baking. Jack also enjoys having Lily play with, and sometimes all three children create imaginary stories and interesting adventures together. Every time she comes home from school, Lily is eager to share what she has learned, stories from friends, and Mark is always willing to listen, sometimes even telling her stories of herself since childhood. Mark and Linda also always create spaces for Lily to express herself, helping her find joy and confidence again. Linda often invites Lily to participate in household chores, such as cooking, cleaning, or decorating for holidays. These small things are simple, but they help Lily feel that she is an indispensable part of the family. Dinners together, chatting and laughing together became a habit, and Lily no longer felt like an outsider. She became part of the family, a close friend to Emma and Jack, and a new hope for Mark and Linda in the months that followed. Time passed, and the relationship between Lily and Mark's family grew closer and closer. She no longer felt lonely, and gradually, the memories of her parents, though always there, no longer haunted her. Lily realized that love comes not only from those who have been lost, but also from those who are by their side, always ready to lend a helping hand when needed. Every morning she wakes up feeling grateful to have Mark, Linda, Emma, and Jack in her life, who have opened the door to her heart and shown her that family doesn't have to be the same blood, but people who love and share every moment. Used to have difficulties in life. For Lily, the new year is no longer just a time to mark the end and the beginning. It has become a symbol of a new beginning, of a new family that she can call home. Winter gradually passed, and spring began to take on fresh colors. In Mark's cozy home, life continues to pass with simple but meaningful joys. Lily is no longer a lonely girl with deep sadness in her heart. Instead, she is an indispensable part of that small family. Every morning she wakes up, she feels love and care, from Linda's warm hugs to Emma and Jack's bright smiles. Dinner gatherings, weekend mornings doing errands together in the house, and evenings sharing everyday life stories, all became precious moments in her life. Mark and Linda became more and more attached to Lily, and every time they saw her grow up, they felt like they had found a new happiness. Mark, with deep life experience, understands that love does not always come from blood ties, but can come from small but sincere actions. He felt happy to see Lily gradually become happier and more confident, as she no longer held old sadness in her heart but instead had new hopes and dreams. Lily also felt the change in herself. She no longer felt like an outsider, but part of the family, a close friend that Mark, Linda, Emma, and Jack always welcomed. She began to open up more, share her thoughts and feelings, and was no longer afraid to participate in family activities. Every time she saw Emma and Jack's smiles, she felt happy, and every time Mark patted her on the shoulder, she felt the protection she had been missing for a long time. Lily's life is no longer just an existence, but a journey of hope and love. She found her family in an unexpected place, and it was that family that helped her rediscover her faith in life. She no longer felt lonely in the middle of this big world, but felt loved and appreciated. The new year has really brought a new beginning for Lily, not just a milestone but a turning point in her life. And for Mark, Linda, Emma, and Jack, Lily is not just a child they rescue on New Year's Eve, but a friend, a family member they will love and protect for the rest of their lives. Together they have created a story of love, connection, and the power of compassion. The story of Lily and Mark's family is not only a story of loss and grief, but also a story of healing, unity, and hope. And in each moment they shared, they wrote a meaningful new chapter where love is the only thing that really matters.